Dearest fellow geeks and nerds, welcome to Cordially Invited, the podcast where all your favorite actors from gaming to animation, small screen to big screen will gather every second week on Wednesday to talk about their work, passion, and what the future may hold. I am your host, Lily Kay, artist, actor, writer, and content creator.
I am Devora Wilde. I'm an actress, but I do lots of things. I mean, actress, I suppose, covers it really. Video games, you'll probably know me from, but also TV and film and theatre and anything in between, really.
Hi, Devora. Welcome.
Hello. Hi.
It's so nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
And I want to say, I might butcher this, but it's connected to the first question, so I will try my best. Strasti?
Yes, very good. Very good. Can you roll your R's?
I think so.
Can you do like a rrr?
Rrr.
Oh, perfect. You're set. You're set for the Bulgarian and many other Eastern European languages.
Okay, that makes me very happy.
Good job.
Thank you. Because I got the information that you were born in Bulgaria.
Yes, I was.
But raised in the UK.
Yes, yeah. I was raised in the UK from the age of 6.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So English is your mother language?
No, well, yeah, I'd say Bulgarian is probably my mother tongue, because when I arrived to the UK, I distinctly remember I couldn't really speak English at all, like to the point of I think my mum had taught me like one phrase to go into school, and that was like, can I go to the toilet, or where is the toilet? That was the phrase that I knew, and everything else was a bit like, I think I know like words here and there, but it was not yeah, I didn't really know it. And then I just, being a fairly young child, I guess I just picked it up very quickly in school, as you do.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I mean, that's the adventures of being a kid and just getting into a new environment.
Exactly. Kids are very adaptable, and I don't really remember ever having like a super hard time with that transition. Like I definitely remember not understanding anything, but I don't have memories of it being like hard or traumatic or anything like that. If anything, it was just like, oh, I picked it up quite quickly and just kind of got on with it. So yeah, and now probably my English is probably better than my Bulgarian, in the sense that I have like a wider vocabulary to describe things. My Bulgarian is obviously still great, but because I spend most of my time speaking in English now, it's probably a little bit better.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And how many languages do you speak currently?
Well, natively Bulgarian and English. I speak a bit of Russian. It's very similar to Bulgarian, and also I had the chance to do it at school, which for me was very cool, to do a language that was so close to my own, and to be able to do that at school. And then we were just talking about my failed attempt at German. So
yes.
And one language that I definitely can't speak is German. I tried, guys. It was really hard.
It is really hard.
Yeah, but two languages like natively.
Okay, and knowing this many languages, is it make it easier to do accents, or would you consider it to make it easier?
I suppose so. Although I think of the accents that come to me quite naturally, the accents I mean that I haven't really learned, like had to sit down and learn, and that would be an American accent and, funnily enough, an Australian accent. And it's very funny because when people meet me, especially in the UK, they all think I'm Australian, which is very strange to me because I've never been to Australia. I've not spent any time there. But the only thing I can connect that to is that when I was growing up, every evening there used to be a show called Home and Away here in the UK.
Yes.
You know Home and Away,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
There was like Neighbours and Home and Away, and I was always the one that was watching Home and Away. So every time, that slot from like 6 to 6:30, I think it was like Home and Away, and I used to watch that every evening when I got home from school. And I'm thinking, like, has that sort of rubbed off on my intonation and my voice and the way I speak? And maybe it has, because I've never really had to work on that accent. I mean, it's not an accent that I use very often at all. But the American as well, it's a similar thing. Like, I grew up watching, as we all did, American movies and things like that. So that's an accent that when I went into acting, I never really had to work at it too much because it just came very naturally to me. So whether that's a result of speaking languages, maybe, Possibly. I think it certainly helps to know, like, say, being Bulgarian, being Eastern European, knowing naturally you've been around. So obviously, I've been around lots of people that I've heard that accent a lot. So people that are Bulgarian and speaking English, or even people that are Russian or any other Eastern European country speaking English. So I can tell also the distinction between the different accents because many people often think that an Eastern European accent is an Eastern European accent, but there's many different variations. Yeah, similar to like when people say general American. Obviously, we all know there's not a general American accent. And it helps to have that, yeah, that kind of knowledge. And also, like, I always think that accents, you sort of match them to an attitude almost.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very helpful to know, being Eastern European, like what the attitude is, how can I
Yes.
sort of portray it that way? Um, it helps. I would say it helps. I can't really pin down the way that it helps, but
Hmm.
I imagine that languages are helpful for many things, and accents are probably one of them.
Oh, yeah. Because I think when you know more than one language, you I guess your hearing just gets better to
Yeah.
hear out the differences between languages.
Mm.
Wish it would be true with German, but it's not. It's not true
Yeah,
there.
it's
I've tried.
tricky.
It's so
Tricky.
tricky. Oh my God. So you played so many characters, strong warrior women, Lae'zel,
Mm.
Nika, Galbrena. And I don't know if I said that right, but I'm
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We roll
Yeah.
with it.
It's great.
Um, is there a specific character type that you have more difficulty to get into than the others? Like thinking here, like playing a younger character in an older character, or is there really a type that gives you a bit of trouble to get into?
I think, yeah, anything that you have to like really change your voice and
Okay.
sustain, and I'm talking here about video games specifically, because that's really the only place where you would be required to play a character that's decades younger or decades older than you. Obviously, on screen, you won't be doing that.
Yeah.
So anything that requires you to change your voice drastically and sustain that over a long period of time, I think can be tricky because I always worry about it sounding realistic. So yeah, the young and the old is tricky because sometimes I'll listen back and I'm like, is that a young character or does that sound like an older person putting on a young voice? And vice versa. Does that sound like an old character? Does it sound like me just putting on an old lady voice or whatever? So for those kinds of extremely different characters to me, it's hard to it's just you just got to be aware of like maintaining the authenticity of the character and yeah, so that can be quite tricky. Other than that, I really think if a script is like well written and the character's well written, and obviously you're always supported by a team, you have a director and the writers and the producers and everything, then I feel like any creative things like that can always be worked out and discussed. So probably it would only really be a voice thing that would be creating some difficulties.
Okay. That's fair
Yeah.
enough. How much
Yeah.
how much time did it take for you to find Laser's voice? Because Laser's voice is very different sounding from your natural voice.
I am unfamiliar with the, well, I shall not say culture, custom perhaps.
Yes, that's true. And actually, when we started recording Lae'zel, we started off with my voice, and I think that you can certainly hear that in the earlier parts of the story. And when very naturally, and I can't tell you for what reason and how this happened, but in some kind of organic way, the voice just kind of started to drop and get like that husky, like Lae'zel sort of tone and intensity. And we ended up with the voice, and we were like, this is a great place for the voice. And at one point, I was a bit concerned because I thought, oh no, I've used my natural voice in the earlier recordings, and now Lae'zel sits in a much lower register and all of that stuff. So I was a little worried. Um, but nobody really seems to have picked up on it. And also, luckily, because the game was recorded chronologically, more or less chronologically, I kind of think it works. It works as Lae'zel coming in and having this voice like I have now, maybe a bit sort of, she's young and she's sort of a bit cocky and she knows what she's here to do. Yeah, it's not a great situation, but she's trained for this. She knows what she's here to do. She's going to get it done. She's going to leave. And obviously things happen along the way that change the story and change all that. So then the voice progression, I think, makes sense.
Cockroaches are survivors, yet I do not congratulate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it all worked out in the end, but it was a bit of a process. It was a process, and I think it was genuinely because we just had so much time with the character, and we got to play and experiment and then come up with this voice that everybody liked and we were all just really happy with.
Yeah. And because it took 5 years, if I remember correctly.
It took, well, let's see. I got cast in 2019. So my first session, I think, was in around 2019. And then we were recording just up until just before it released. So 2023. So it's like 4 years. 4 years.
4 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite a long process.
It was a long process. Yeah.
And in the midst of it all, you know, baby came. I think that's what we talked about as well. But you still went in and you did it as long as you could. But how did the conversation go about that? Like, you know, because it is a situation that can happen to women, whether it's theater, movie, video game, whatever it is, and it's a delicate situation, obviously. How did the studio react, or what was their initial reaction to you being pregnant and maybe not being able to finish recording?
Yeah, I mean, pregnancy was something that I was very worried about, just having this career in general. Because for all the reasons that you mentioned, obviously it's much more of a concern in TV and film, because you really can't, unless the character is pregnant or they do something with CGI, there really isn't a lot you can do I mean, you could hide it or you could shoot from like the waist up and stuff.
Yeah.
But luckily this was a video game, and video games, even though we were doing full performance capture, it was really, I wasn't worried about telling them, and their reaction was absolutely brilliant, and nobody caused me any issues. Nobody had a problem with it. Everything was absolutely fine. I was given a lot of extra time and a chair in the booth, because usually we'd be standing for 4 hours. Just given a chair, obviously lots of extra breaks, lots of, do as much as you need. And then as it got towards the end, they were like, are you sure you want to come in? Are you okay? Do you want to come in? Like, tell us how much or how little or how little you want to do. And luckily I just happened to have a very good, very easy pregnancy. I was fine. I was just a bit tired towards the end because, you're getting bigger, and you're on your feet. But aside from that, it was great. It was really the perfect situation. And yeah, in fact, I was just like, guys, I'm going to be here till the end. Just you watch. And they were like, no, you're not. And I ended up being there up until 2 days before I gave birth, because my waters happened to break after a Baldur's Gate 3 session. So that's pretty funny. And yeah, so it was a very nice environment, and I think that we're very lucky with video games. Being a woman in video games is really great from that point of view, because and especially even for performance capture, your appearance really doesn't matter. I think a lot of people are concerned, not just with pregnancy, but a lot of people are concerned, like, am I the right size to be in a video game? What size do I have to be? And I always say, like, you don't have to be anything other than yourself. You can be tall, short, large or small. It doesn't matter. Video games, that's why I love them so much. And I'm like talking so passionately about this, because it just makes life so much easier. Everyone really has the opportunity to focus on the acting and the story without having to worry about what we look like. And pregnancy was a great example of that as well. So I had a great experience.
That's amazing to hear, because it is something that, as you said it as well, if it would come to a TV show or a movie, it's a lot riskier to absolutely. Wow, that's awesome. And you even went back after giving birth? Is that the correct info?
yeah, I went back. I think it was like maybe 4 weeks afterwards. Something like that. Wow. And again, I was like, my agent and also, Larian and Pit Stop Productions, where we recorded, everyone was like, you just let us know when you want to come back. Just email us. And so 4 weeks passed, and I was like, I'm ready to come back. And everyone's like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to go? Are you sure? Are you okay? And I was like, no, seriously, it's fine. And so, yeah, it was no pressure whenever I wanted to, whenever I felt like I could. Yeah, very flexible and cool with
Oh,
it.
that's very
Yeah,
cool. I
it's
like I
great.
like hearing that because there are a lot of stories out there that are not this nice, unfortunately.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think it's important for women as well to hear stories like that, and specifically women that might be worried, like I was working in the creative industry, about pregnancy and getting pregnant and all that stuff. That it's completely possible nowadays to have a good experience and have a family if you want to have a family and do all that. And I actually think that a lot of companies now and productions are very sensitive to that and to the fact that people, men and women, have families and that needs to be accommodated for in this crazy industry that we work in because sometimes you've got to fly to like different places, spend months at a time in different locations, and that's not easy either for any family dynamic. And I think productions are a lot more sensitive to that now, which is amazing.
It is. It truly is. Because of Baldur's Gate, I think we can say that you get to go to a lot of conventions now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm wondering of like what kind of fan interactions did you have? How do you interact with the fans? And do you maybe have a favorite memory that you can share with us? Just, tell us a little bit about the convention life.
The convention life is like a whole new world. I feel like
Yeah.
I opened up like a parallel, like just a different reality because I had never I didn't really know what conventions were. I think I'd heard of like Comic Con as like a concept, and that's all I knew. I'd never been to a convention. I didn't really know how they worked. I just knew nothing about it. So I went in, I think the first convention we ever did all together, the Baldur's Gate cast, the first one we ever did together was at MCM Comic Con back in 2023, 2023, 2024, can't remember, somewhere around there. And I kind of just went in thinking, oh, if a few people turn up, that'll be great. And that's fine. And then we'll do a panel and we'll get to meet. And the amount of people that turned up, and we were just like, what the hell? Like it's crazy because I think you record in isolation, the project comes out, you see the reactions, but you're sort of behind a screen. You're watching everything unfold on the internet, or yeah, literally on the internet. That's where you're seeing it
Yeah.
unfold. So it feels a little surreal and not quite, just not, you don't really see the people that are appreciating the game. But when you go to a convention, you actually get to see them and get to meet them. And I think my favorite fan interactions, I mean, I can't like name a specific one, but I do think it's just things that when people come up to you and say, this character's got me through a really hard time. This character's helped me to process things in my past that I haven't been able to process, even with therapy or something like that. Or this character's helped me heal. This character affected me. I had to, I don't know, there's a lot of people that are like, I uh, had, an illness. I had to be in the hospital for 6 months, or I broke my leg or something like that. And I couldn't get up, I couldn't move. And my only thing was playing Baldur's Gate 3 and playing that and going through all the characters, which felt like my escape during that time when I was bedbound and couldn't move and couldn't do all that stuff. So all of these stories that I was hearing just sort of blew my mind because to me it was just an incredible job and really good fun, and I had such a great time, and I was so happy to just have a job and be employed and also tell this amazing story with amazing character. And that's as far as it went for me. And then I discovered that people actually really connected deeply to these characters, and then that was just like a whole other level. And so conventions have really been and continue to be quite incredible, to be honest.
Oh yeah, bad. I mean, I was there when you guys were at MCM,
Yes.
but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I
Yeah.
had to stand, I didn't have the chance to actually come up and say hi. But I'm still secretly hoping that you got the little drawing that I made for all of you.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. I kept looking at that behind you and I was like, that looks really familiar.
Yes,
Yes,
that was
yes, yes.
me. And
Connections, connections,
connections. There was a
connections,
lovely guy
connections.
there, and I asked him, like, I'm not going to
Yes.
be able to come back when you're actually at the autograph signing, and he was like, that's okay. I'm just going to give it to them.
Yes.
And I was,
no,
I
we got
never
it.
knew if you did get it or
Yeah, we
not.
did. Honestly, I kept looking at that behind you and I was like, that's really familiar. Why is that ringing a bell? Now I know. Now I know that all the connections have been made in my brain.
It was me. Awesome.
Yay.
That's so good to know. Because of Baldur's Gate, and Baldur's Gate is heavily based on Dungeons and Dragons and the style of Dungeons and Dragons. You've been playing Dungeons and Dragons to the best of my knowledge.
A little bit, yes, I have. Well, certainly since the game came out, I have been I've dabbled a few times. Yes, I have.
And how are you finding it? Because it's very different from like, you know, playing a character who's part of the universe and actually sitting down at the table and playing Dungeons and Dragons and making up your own character. Like,
so true.
Is this your world? Do you think that you're going to take on more Dungeons and Dragons experience?
So I was a bit intimidated at first when we did the first D&D session with all of us. I think it was with High Rollers. And I was very intimidated because I got the character sheet and it was for Lae'zel. So obviously I knew the character, but I saw the stats and all the numbers and I was like, oh my God, what the hell? But luckily High Rollers team was amazing. And just kind of, you know, as soon as we started, I was like, oh my God, this is fine. This is fine. This is just improv. And the DM is the person that needs to worry about the story and all of that stuff. And I just need to relax and enjoy it and play Lae'zel and have fun. And then since I've played in subsequent sessions, and now obviously we have a Dungeons and Dragons and Dramas podcast where we're actually playing D&D, like for a campaign for real. I have gotten much better at it. I know, you know, I know just a bit more, well, a lot more really about what everything means, because before I was just like, I'm rolling a dice and what does that mean? Like I couldn't quite, in my brain, I just couldn't quite understand why you were rolling dice to make certain decisions and how you were quantifying the decisions. I think that's what was really, that's what was kind of a bit obscure in my brain. But now I understand the system and I understand that you can be also very creative with D&D, which I think is so great. Like if to me, it's mostly a role-playing exercise. And for an actor, that is just incredible because you get to be free and you get to have fun and you get to be silly with your friends. And then obviously the dice rolls and all that, I do mostly just let the DM worry about that, but I have become better at understanding it as well. And that's been great. But obviously it takes a bit of time because some people obviously have played D&D since they were kids or teenagers, and I just came at it very late. So it took me a bit of time to just catch up.
That's fair. I mean, playing it the first time, I was so confused by everything. I was like, how does this work? What is going on? Why do I have so many dice? Like,
why do you have so many? That's the question I always ask. I'm like, I feel like we could just play this with a D20, and then I realized why you can't do that. But yes, I was just like, why have I got so many things in my hands? Like, what are all the numbers? I hate maths. But then, you know, now it's okay. It's fine.
Okay, fair enough. And are you a gamer in general? Did you ever play your own video games?
So I'm still streaming Baldur's Gate 3. We've been streaming it since 2023 and we still haven't finished, which is crazy. But it's because I had to take breaks and I was moving house and doing all sorts of things. I wasn't really a gamer before that. It's a bit, and it's a big game. Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge game. So I wasn't really a gamer before that, to be honest. I played like The Sims when I was a teenager, maybe some like Super Mario. I had like a little Nintendo, I think, at some point, but I was never super into it. And then started streaming Baldur's Gate 3 and I had to really get to grips with like, I'd never had a PlayStation. So I was like, what do the buttons mean? Like, how do I hold a controller? So all of that stuff, which was quite tricky to navigate, but also fun. Like it was a big learning curve for me. And I remember at one point I was hitting a wall and I was like, if I can get over this learning hump, I think everything's going to be much easier. And I did. And now I can, I do quite a lot of things intuitively. It's like anything. You just got to put in the hours and do it. Unfortunately, I just don't have that much time to play video games these days. But my ambition for 2026 is to finish Baldur's Gate 3.
That's a very good ambition.
It's a good ambition. Yeah. And I think we're going to manage. We'll manage. Should
be fine. Yeah. There's still plenty of time from 2026.
Exactly. Exactly. I think it's a very realistic goal I've set myself.
Yeah. And we're gonna follow. We're gonna follow through then.
Yeah.
You were in Expedition 33, and
I
I think
was.
people would kill me if I wouldn't ask about it. So the very first question, that is a very obvious question, is how did you get the part of Clea?
Well, I got the part like I get any part really. I got an audition through. The project was codenamed. The character I think was still written. Yeah, I think she was still called Claire. The character wasn't codenamed. The project was codenamed. I auditioned for it,
Mhm.
and then I got it. That was that simple, easy.
Good old
I think
road.
people the good old road, well traveled. I think a lot of people think that we get offered roles now, but the reality is, I mean, certainly for me, I still audition for everything. It's very rare. It's very rare that somebody will come to me and offer me a role, which I think is nice in many ways because it means that game developers actually care about putting the right voice into their games, not just a voice that happens to be famous because of Baldur's Gate 3 or any other game. And really, that's how it should be. The voice that serves the story, the performance that's going to serve the story and the character, most importantly, rather than, oh, let's just get Devora Wilde because she was in Baldur's Gate 3. So the process still feels quite egalitarian, which I think is great.
How confusing, or was it at all confusing at all to read through the story, or did you get because I know it goes very differently for everyone, because sometimes you
Yeah.
just get your parts of what you have to say, but in general, like, what did you think about the story when you first get to know it better?
Yeah, so I think when I first auditioned, I got a very kind of short overview of the story, and then I remember thinking like, okay, I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but I had enough context so I could do the audition. Once I got the part, they were really great, and they sent me like I think it was about a page or a page and a half, basically describing the story in detail and describing, I'm not going to spoil anything, but describing why my character comes in, the different versions of my character, the different, let's say, worlds that you encounter in Expedition 33. And then that made a lot more sense. Then when I went into the recording session, I knew then why she was saying certain lines. And it was just a lot easier. And you don't always get that, by the way. Sometimes you get the part and then you'll go in and you still have very little context. And then you have to ask it in the session. And usually, the director will tell you in the session about the game and a bit more context. But this was useful because just seeing it written down, I could go through it sort of to myself a bit more before I started the session, and that was just helpful.
So Expedition 33, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk, with all these characters in your resume now, how mean it is to ask, do you have a favorite one?
That is mean. I can't pick a favorite. That's like picking a favorite child because they're
I
all
know.
so different. They're all so different. No, I don't have a favorite. I love
Okay.
them all
Yeah,
equally.
yeah,
Yeah.
I understand. I understand. Worth the question. Worth the question. Who knows?
Yeah, worth asking always.
Yeah. Is there a current ongoing franchise that you would really like to take part in any way, shape, or form? Or is this so basically the question is, how do you approach roles? Like, is there like a dream role out there? Is there maybe an already established game or movie or TV or whatever that you really like and would like to take part in? Or how do you get into roles when it comes to, looking for the next audition?
I mean, again, we don't really get to pick and choose which auditions we get. We sort of get them based on whether they're
Okay.
suitable for our casting type. I personally don't have a particular dream role
Hmm.
because for me, it's really about if the character's well written and the story is compelling and interesting, then I'm interested. I don't care if it's a huge studio or a small studio or an indie studio. That doesn't concern me at all. I'm just interested in, is it going to be an interesting character? And, especially I think female characters are very interesting in video games these days because they traditionally were not always written as kind of three-dimensional characters. Now that's changed a lot. So you have some very, very interesting female characters. And so especially for me, playing female characters, that is also something that I would look for. That it's not like a stereotype. Also, Eastern European stereotypes. I try and avoid those, if I can. So really, that's kind of it. And then if all those boxes are ticked, then for me that would be a dream role and a dream project.
That's fair enough. Is there any lines, or is there any kind of boundary that even if, I don't know, they paid the biggest budget that you've ever got, you would refuse to do? Whether we think about here, like, you know, being a very stereotyped character, or being a lot of hate speech, or anything like that. Do you have a line where you're like, yeah, thank you, I'm not gonna do this?
For sure. Yeah. I think anything that, like the stuff you just mentioned, hate speech and anything, and yes, stereotypes, just avoiding very, very cliched stereotypes. Also, I think it's important to be inclusive in video game casting, and I think that sometimes gets forgotten because some companies assume that it's because it's a video game character, they've created the animation of it, or the character model for the, and then that can be voiced by anyone. And I have been asked in the past to voice characters that were not my race, and I've said no to that. That's a boundary that I have, and I will not do that, because I don't think that's right. I think that's taking away a role from somebody else that could voice that. And I just think like inclusion is such a big thing now in film and TV, and why is that not translating into video games? And luckily, for the most part, it really is. But there are still a few exceptions, and I have witnessed those, and I'm like, absolutely not. I will not do that. So that kind of stuff I think would be my boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is, to be fair, because I like to ask this question. I think it's nice to put it out there a bit more, because there tend to be some characters that are very stereotypical, and I'm always wondering if, like, why do we still need this? Or
I agree with you, and I think it's just, the answer really is, there's still, like in film and TV, there is still those like old tropes and stereotypes, and we've just got to try and like rally a bit more to create more interesting characters, even if it is a quote unquote stereotype. Let's make them a bit more interesting. Let's give them a reason for being the way that they are. Let's give them a bit of a backstory. Let's explain why they, because if you have all those other like backstory elements in place, then it becomes less about being a stereotypical character. It becomes a character that's motivated by certain things, and then they're making informed decision, rather than, you know, say, I'm going to play an Eastern European character and I'm going to be a gangster, I'm going to be a criminal, and then you're just like, oh God, here we go again, you know. So that kind of stuff, it just needs to be informed by something. And also, ideally, we need to show that Eastern Europeans, for example, can be different kinds of characters, by the way, guys. They don't always need to be the criminals, or, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, but I think that kind of stuff is gradually changing. And I've got to say, actually, I'm thinking back on the auditions I've had, and I can't even think of a recent stereotypical audition that I've had. I actually can't even think of one off the top of my head. So that shows that things are progressing. Yeah.
I am forever be amazed by what you can do, what your colleagues can do, because if something is out there that I can do is voices. I'm just, you know, I tried. I've been trying this different paths of like, oh, I can be a demon, or I can be this and that, and it's like, no. No,
yeah, well, that's a skill in itself. You know, that's something that, again, some people can do loads of different, like wildly different voices, and impressions and things like that. Yeah. And some people can't. I mean, I would say that I can't do wildly different voices. I can change my tone and my register and things like that, but I can't do something that's so different that you would, you know, or can I? I don't know. But mostly not. And most of the time, well, most of the time, luckily, you're not required to, because I think a lot of video game characters now are also quite grounded in reality, unless, like you say, you're doing a creature or a demon or something like that. But a lot of the characters actually are very grounded in reality, and they're not looking for like cartoon style performances or anything like that. It's meant to really look and feel almost cinematic, and a lot of these games do look and feel cinematic because you have those really fleshed out whole performances, grounded, natural performances, which I think is brilliant. And I think that the industry moving towards that is really brilliant.
Oh yeah. But to be fair, when we first talked, like the very first interview that we did together, and you said your first words, I was like, are we sure this is Lae'zel?
Yeah, because it's different.
It is very different. I was like, wow,
It's different.
it's
Yeah.
it's insane. Like this is definitely something that I'm like, hats off, just respect.
Yeah.
I'm like incapable of absolutely changing my voice. It's like, nope, it's not gonna happen. This is what you get. But I guess it works for some things and it doesn't for
Yeah,
others.
exactly. Yeah.
It is what it is. I'm a podcast host. I'm happy with that. And the other big question that is going around and it is affecting the game industry, it affects the art industry, unfortunately, is the use of AI. And it's definitely getting a much bigger space in these creative fields. And I would like to know your thoughts on it because I think I never thought that, creative fields are going to be one of the first ones that they're going to get into this AI territory, and it's going to be so quick as well.
Yeah.
Because it really is happening like this, and you already like hear voices of people who are unfortunately no longer with us with new projects because and it's just boggling. What do you think about this? What is your take on the whole AI situation?
I think that AI can be very useful in many fields,
100%.
healthcare, for example,
Yeah.
And things like that. I also think that it's not great in the acting world. Let's put it that way. I don't think it has a place really, and I'm talking here creatively for people like us, say in a video game, recording lines and doing the voice of a character or anything like that. I just think that the problem is that you're really going to lose if AI gets to a point where it really is replacing actors, which I hope it doesn't. You're going to lose that kind of spontaneity, an element of surprise, an element of collaboration that you really get between an actor, a director, a movement director, say if you're doing performance capture, and those kind of unexpected moments where even if you're saying a line and you think you're going to say it one way and you start saying it and then a little noise comes out or you get a bit of like a huh, like little chuckles, little things that are not planned but they just come out, things like that. I really can't see how, and I'm no tech expert here, maybe there is a way, but I really can't see how AI would do that in a spontaneous way that a human can, and I would really hope that it wouldn't happen. So my take on AI is I think AI has its uses in the world, and obviously it's becoming more prominent. And for things like healthcare, I think it can be brilliant. But let's stick with it in those fields. And I really don't think it needs to be part of our creative world. I don't think it should really be replacing actors at all. And I think really the storytelling and the characters could potentially become less compelling and less interesting if they were to be taken over by AI.
If you could meet your younger self, how would you describe her, what you're doing now? Was this always the plan of being an actor, or would it be a surprise of like, hey, this is what we're doing now?
No, it was always the plan. It took a little roundabout way to get there, but it was always the plan. And I think I'd just be like, I'm having a blast, I'm having a great time. And isn't it amazing that the thing that I wanted to do is the thing that I'm actually doing now? And I think younger me would be very impressed and very happy. Yeah.
Good. That's a perfect closure for us then.
Yeah.
All right, Devora, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And I know there's a lot of NDAs, but maybe a little teaser of what the future may hold? Are we going to see you in something this year? Or...
Yes, we've got Solasta 2 coming out, starring myself, Amelia Tyler, Ben Starr, Ellen Thomas. Watch this space, coming soon. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Great storytelling, great team. Watch out for it.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
It was lovely to see you again. And hopefully
we can
talk in the future as well about the next big thing that is
next
happening
project
in your life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.